Hey folks, in this episode I caught up with CJ Mays. CJ is an Enablement Director at JLL. He's also a Tableau Visionary and Ambassador, and he created this visualization about shot zones for West Ham. I was really interested in how this viz came about, so caught up with CJ, and this is what happened next.
Do you normally start your projects with say, I just want to build this chart that I've seen in the wild, I want to put this into Tableau?
Yes, it's quite odd how things have developed probably over the past few years. This viz specifically is purely based on the chart type. So this is looking at shot zones. And so what we haven't seen in Tableau done before is this idea of, yes, we can create shot maps of where goals are positioned on a pitch. And that was using back years ago stuff from what James Smith had done in terms of using a map background image. Whereas this, I've gone a little bit further and I've started to play around with the coordinates of a pitch and the dimensions of a pitch and said, okay, let's draw this as polygons. Yes, we lose a little bit of detail for a football pitch in terms of your halfway mark where the circles would be and the semicircle near the box edge. But let's take those markings of a pitch, make them into polygons, and then let's actually overlay another section that's saying, let's break this pitch now into different shot zones. So you'll see the key down in the bottom right-hand side. This is where I've taken those different dimensions of the pitch and broken it up and actually created new zonings on the pitch to be able to plot them as colored polygons.
When I downloaded this viz, I was like, how did you make this? And it's like using map layers, loads of map layers.
Yeah, so actually quite a lot of data preparation will go into a piece like this. So what I quite like to think about, a lot of the content that I share on my website is progressive stuff, or it starts to go in tangents. So we take, for example, a very simple, these are your XY coordinates, and you can do that with basketball data, tennis data, football data, whatever, and plot a picture behind it to show where the framing of a pitch would be. And then we start to dive into certain different elements. So if I was to go onto my profile page and work backwards, it starts with this collaboration piece I did with Simon quite a while ago, where you could hover over marks and there would be a very simple football pitch of XY coordinates. Slowly then, I start using different tools. So I use a Python script to say, what's the convex hull? So draw a polygon that marks all the different outlines. And realistically for that, you just need to say, have another column that says, is this point one of your outer points? So then you need a kind of a path ID. Slowly, you can build these up. So these, again, is just using a Tableau native hex binning. But again, we're just using the same XY coordinates. Then you can start to differentiate into path networks. And then also I've done quite a lot of stuff with small multiples. And then that kind of led me back into the idea of, okay, where else can we take this? And I kind of landed on the shot zones because I'd seen it being done in the football community, but it hasn't. What we're missing is a lot of these things aren't done in Tableau.
You decide on that layout? Because I know we've got like the chronological kind of view here of the months down the sides versus you could have just done, I suppose, all the pitches as a square grid.
It derives from this classic idea of let's build small multiples, right? And I think in a lot of cases, when you build a small multiples, you're either doing it sorting descending on a value or you're going to do it alphabetically. So here's a very simple idea of goals scored within a season by each team. But then you tend to have in football this idea of first half of the season versus second half of the season and the story that would go along with that. And so what I wanted to do was say, okay, how are West Ham performing over the duration of that season? So I actually have a small indicator of number of wins, draws and losses. Okay, let's take this as a progressive thing to see, okay, on the bounce, how many are West Ham winning within certain time periods, that kind of thing. So you can start to explore, again, open those questions. And also I quite like, in some regards, albeit quite a uniform visual, the idea of not having it as a complete square. The offset also allows this nice space for a key And you could probably, if you really wanted, add in a few of those metrics that I'd just spoken about in terms of top goal scorer, or you could bring out different annotations. You know, if there was a goal that happened within this game that was really exciting, you could bring out maybe some dashed lines and a bit of context behind it, or have little pop outs as you go along. So that idea of just having breathing space either side of the visual, I think would really helps in terms of the layout. But yeah, here I just went chronologically in months to allow for that rolling sum of wins, draws and losses.
Yeah, no, I mean, that makes total sense. If you've got that context of like halfway through the season, totally add it in. And I suppose when you're going through this as well, you could think of, say, you could almost find a turning point where fortunes changed. I think, like, from what I can see, it started out quite well. Like in October, you've won 6 games versus 2 losses, 2 draws. I think that's, for me, that's quite good. I'd be happy with that. But see how fortunes change after that could be, yeah, really interesting things for people to go and explore themselves.
It's funny you mentioned that, because originally, I mean, truth be told, I support West Ham, so I made it about West Ham. But I was going to do the most recent season and do the likes of Everton or Nottingham Forest, because they're teams that were jumping up and out of the relegation zone, right? So you could almost do another layer somewhere in here to say, like, are you at risk of relegation, and how do you move up and out of relegation as the season proceeds? So it's funny that you mentioned that, because that was going to be one of the original ideas behind it, but then I ended up going down this route because of the design idea of having a similar number of goals for and against within the season, because it makes for a nicer print.
So what I noticed with this is actually quite a lot of detail contained within this, but it just doesn't overburden. I like this little distribution line at the bottom from 0 to 90 minutes of when the goals are scored. I thought that was a really nice simplifying like ad to have in there, because that in a sense tells a story in itself of like the timeline of when these things happen.
The idea of, you know, do you get an early goal or do you concede late, I think is a really nice little, it's a reference point, but it adds context to the game in a similar way. So that kind of was inspired by this collaboration piece, to go back, where we have the goals on the outer edges of this kind of like scorecard feel. So I thought, okay, what's another way that we can almost flip this? So it's very similar to see what's running through the middle here, but all I've done is taken off the color to allow for it to settle into the page, but then move those goal points into the center.
This like dashboard, was there anything you say want to add in the future, or anything you want in terms of data you would want to put in but you couldn't find?
I think to take this further, it would need to be going down that idea of when we spoke about analysis and storytelling, and what really is the actual story that sits behind West Ham's season in terms of player performance, who's most clinical in front of goal, who's least, and where that build-up play behind the shots really is. So I would probably like to bring in a lot more player metrics. Now, that data sits across a variety of different kind of football sites. So this is taken from the Understat website. So the good thing about that is I can actually cross-reference each different game, and they have their own visual of the match, so that I can make sure that what I'm plotting is actually correct. But there's other websites like FBref, and if you have paid services like Opta and StatsBomb, football is one of the industries that there's so much data out there that it really allows you to build out good summary stats on different players. So I probably would put a lot of that into this piece. But for now, I'm really happy with the print style effect of it, as well as hopefully it will open up the eyes to many other people that want to be playing around with football data in Tableau.
Just want to say, is there anything that people should be looking out for that you're working on?
Always. I will never not jump at the opportunity to promote my own website, but over the past few months, I've really been ramping up the content that's been on there. And I think over the July period, I have 4 new blogs that are all football related. A couple that is looking to do automated shot maps. There'll be the full blog post for this visualization in greater detail. And there will also be some stuff around actually some of the metrics that we've just discussed in terms of expected goals and how we can measure a team's rolling XG over time. Lots of football data related stuff. And I do have a few guest blogs, hopefully in the works. I won't call out their names just for keep the excitement there, but I'm always open to having more guest blogs. I really like promoting a whole variety of stuff. It's not just data visualization anymore. It's such a growing industry that I do have coding stuff on there, as well as moving into more of the AI space. So just watch this space, I think, Will.
I really enjoyed that conversation with CJ, and these were some of my takeaways. Use your portfolio to help develop these ideas. So this visualization wasn't the first CJ made. It actually was a product of several pieces of work from his portfolio. And this is the value of the portfolio, is that you can go back and reuse the techniques that you've done before to keep iterating and building on your visualization and make a great viz. Context informs design. Think about how your audience normally view this data. What factors are important to them? In this case, that chronological view helps them understand the data. So let's go and build that into the visualization. And lastly, there's always going to be more you can do, always more data you can add in there. But step back and think, have you achieved what you initially started off to do? In this case, yes, you can put that in your portfolio, and then if you want to explore those other avenues, it's there for you to pick up with next time. Really excited to see what CJ's got coming up next, and you can check out all those links from this episode in the description here. Other than that, I will see you in the next episode. Bye!